welcome everyone. This is the SARE Farmers Forum. So the two presentations we have in this breakout session were both projects that were sponsored by the SARE program, which is Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. Carrie Ebert, who is our Kansas SARE coordinator, has a table down there if you'd like more information. But so these projects were funded by SARE, and our first group of presenters here is going to talk about water catchment to sustain food production, featuring Alicia Ellingsworth, Jacob Chapman, Sharon Autry, and David Dodds. So we got a nice group here, and I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. It's nice to be here. I'm Alicia, and I'm just going to kick this conversation off really by encouraging you to take steps into the unknown and ask people and try a crazy idea and find new partners and believe in what's possible. That's what we do at KC Farm School. And in 8 years, we've been able to invite 17,000 people a year onto the farm, provide opportunities for education for all ages, specific programs, paid internship for high school kids. And this project sprung out of a bored market day. We're standing around, it's too hot, there's no customers, we have mushrooms, we have veggies, and we have a customer who, asked those questions, and one question led to another, and we put together this project. We're excited about where it's going to take us, and the people that come to visit because of it. You're always welcome to come visit us at KC Farm School. We're in southeastern Wyandotte County. This is actually inside of our tunnel. And I'm going to pass this clicker on to Jacob and David and Sharon, but I do just want to leave you with, it's possible. It's possible that we can collect water off rain roofs. It's possible that we can grow our own food. It's possible that we can grow and sell food. It's possible that we can have an impact even on rainy days, even in 2026. And in fact, if anything is possible, farmers can make it happen. So I want to encourage you to continue to be brave and strong and to try new crazy things.
All right, so I want to quickly share what our goals were with this project, to construct really four rainwater catchment systems, and we'll talk about the fourth also, and to include KC Farm School, which is an urban space, Hersman House Farm, my farm, and that's more a rural space, and then we've got Moose Paw Farm, who is kind of in the middle there, peri-urban farm, and show how we do water catchment on high tunnels in those areas. And of course, as we did it, the important thing for us was to document each step, document the materials, and document the price so that we can share that with folks. Hopefully this is replicable. So that was our goal. And we certainly also want to educate folks. So we talk about it here with you all, and we put resources online. And then I'm going to pass this to Dave Dunn.
So I'm a volunteer at the farm school. I'm an engineer by profession, so I am addicted to spreadsheets. I'm sorry about that. We were looking at building rainwater harvesting systems. So the first thing we did was look at the historical weather records to help us plan how to size catchment systems, right? And so, sorry for all the numbers, like I said, it's genetic predisposition. I just can't help it. The top chart is average monthly temperature by decade over the last 50 years. We have a really nice rainfall record in Kansas City at the airport. The bottom one is the precipitation. The bottom line here is the important information, how the numbers have changed over the last 50 years. And the autumn period is one that really gets our attention, 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees warmer. The winter months are quite a bit warmer than they used to be, right? It's pretty obvious to those of you who work the land. Number geeks like me say, yep, this supports what the farmers are telling me. And from a rainwater harvesting standpoint, the other one that really grabs our attention is what's going on in the summer and fall months. What we're seeing is late spring, summer up through about June, July is about normal. This year, July was really wet. Last 3 or 4 years, it's been this way, right? April, May, June, July, we get rain. 1st of August, the spigot is turned off, right? And so what we're seeing is warmer falls and drier falls. And that is kind of the basis behind why we want to think about rainwater harvesting systems. A little bit more visual temperature. This is September. Over the last half century, temperatures going up, rainfall going down. This is from a weather station at our farm school. The key item here, same thing, 11 inches of rain in July, August, 0. September and October, only about an inch, right? So from a planning standpoint for harvesting rainwater, that's what Jacob and I are saying, okay, how big a tank do we need to store how much water for how long a period do we want to get through, right? That makes sense? The water balance in the system here is when we put up a high tunnel, we're putting a roof over the ground and over the plants. So now they don't get any rain. Over the course of a year, we get about enough rain on average over the course of the whole year to water the plants, but it doesn't always come when we need it. So the balance here is for our calculations, how big is the roof? How much rain do we get each month? Is how much water can go into our tanks. The irrigation rate is how much water goes out of the tanks you use. And the difference is whether we have excess water or need to provide supplemental water each month. And then that goes into how big a tank do we need to hold enough water to tide us over for a month or 2 months or 3 months. But there's a trade-off point. You can't put in a giant tank if your roof isn't very big, because be spending money on a tank that's too big for the amount of water you catch, right? So we did build a spreadsheet to calculate this. More numbers, I'm sorry. It's pretty simple. It's documented in all the information. If you want a copy, it's on the website, or grab one of us afterwards. I'd be happy to email it to you. You enter the roof area of your high tunnel, the monthly rainfall. You can either use your historic averages, or we picked a bad year. And then what it calculates is each month how much water you can collect, how much water you use based on the square feet of your beds and your irrigation rate, how much the water goes up or goes down in the tank, and whether you have to add supplemental water at the end of the month. So that was calculation, a spreadsheet we built to calculate how big storage tanks we need. And what Sharon and Jacob are going to talk you through is they built the rainwater harvesting systems on each of the farms. At Sharon's farm and at the KC Farm School, we used IBC totes. At Jacob's farm, he dug a pond so he can store much more water over the course of a couple of years. So he can harvest water in the spring that we don't have quite the space for. So that's kind of the weather background to the project. I'll turn it over to the farmers now to talk about the systems.
Just wanted to show you all a couple of tools that we used for this. Part of the grant, we've done each location, each site got a weather station to help us collect data on rainfall, and then we took data from our own irrigation using good old Excel. So now we're going to get into the water catchment systems, and the first one that we're going to talk about, I believe, is at KC Farm School.
Thanks. And so we want to keep it simple, right? And approachable for all ages and wherever, whatever walk of life you are. So we have a program called Let's Grow Wind Up. We've helped 800 backyard growers grow food, establish gardens in their houses, and we wanted to show them what a rainwater system off their house or shed could look like. And so David put the system together, led a couple of informational workshops during our farmers market, and then we walked over and looked at the rainwater catchment system. It's still up, it's still running. We're not actually draining from it and watering, but that could happen. So if you want to see what a house small system looks like, please come see us at the farm. That's the first one we did. Okay.
This is my tunnel. So definitely there was a lot of considerations to make before we even choose what kind of catchment system we want to put on. So looking at my tunnel, I have a 30 by 72 single layer poly. You can kind of see the dimensions there, roll up sides. There is rural water there, but there's no power. We have a frost-free hydrant that's about 50 feet away. This is a shared community tunnel. So I grow on it, and then 2 of my other neighbors grow on it. And it's on rented property. So on rented property, I'm probably not going to dig a pond. But also, this is very exposed to wind. Actually, as soon as we got accepted for this grant, my high tunnel got like this 5 winds. So it had to be rebuilt before we could even put the gutters on. And then, thank you, Jacob. Yeah, 4-season production. So, and I also had some goals. Well, each site had goals for why we even wanted to put water catchment systems on there. Definitely want to reduce that dependence on rural water and lower the cost on a shared resource. We want to build our soil health, and we wanted to be able to educate the community. So the components of my system are this 5-inch K-style gutters. Like David said, we have those IBC totes. I have 6 in my tunnel collecting. And then this cool pump, solar array, and battery bank, that's all a kit that came together. And this is kind of a breakdown of cost of that. And
So
I'm
you
going
can
to
buy a lot of water for that.
the good thing to note. Yeah. I'm going to hand this off to Jacob, who's going to talk about Moose Paw.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm Jacob Chapman, Moose Paw Farm. This is my place. And so some different site considerations here. I 100% wanted a 4-season system, and I also wanted I wanted a system that could go the 3 months of drought. So that's where I sized my system, is I wanted to be water autonomous for the farm. And that also allows me to there's like an acre of market garden behind this tunnel. And so there's room for future irrigation projects using this one system off of one building. You can see it's a 30 by 72, a lot like Sharon's. I do have a double inflated roof because I have a rocket mass heater. It's heated, and so that's part of the 4 seasons bit. Roll up sides, why that is important is you got roll up and drop down sides on high tunnels. The drop down sides take up a lot more room on hardware, so you really do have to think about that for sizing your hip boards. Is why we put the size of the hip boards on here if you're planning on putting gutters on. Do note that gutters take up 3.5 inches roughly of space, so you need that much room. And my hip boards, I knew I was going to put gutters on it, so I put a 4-inch pitch on the hip board when I built the tunnel, so then it drains water nice. I did not do a solar system on mine because I already have solar on my farm. My farms already have solar, and I was on municipal water. So you say that's a lot of water, but maintenance watering in July on those hot years when I planted some fruit trees, I was paying over $550 a month for a water bill just to keep things alive, barely. So that is part of, we're finishing this up, that we'll have like the cost breakdown of, what is the return on a system. So yeah, I own the place, so I could put in a farm. Or I could put in a pond. That is a big thing when you're thinking about these water collection systems, is square footage. And like these other systems, we have water storage inside of the tunnel. That's some very valuable space. So you got to think about whether you're storing the water outside the tunnel or inside to try and get that 3.5, 4-season system. Some of the reasons behind my goal, we're watering with a lot of tunnels. We're watering with city water. We have a lot of, chlorine and other things in our water systems. I'm trying to promote soil biology, not kill it. And so rainwater is a really good way to do that, is irrigating with the, what we're provided. Educate community. That's been a common theme throughout all of these projects. This is part of why this wonderful partnership came together, is that we want to, we all want to share this information and help other people do it. For me, there's also wildlife, and this summer having a 38,000 gallon pond was very handy to cool off for me and the dog. Main components, the same gutters. So we try to use all materials that you can purchase locally and or order online as a kit. And so they're, gutters from Home Depot, just regular aluminum gutters. The pond liner is composed of a pond liner, so a liner pad, and then a liner itself. Here's a photo of us digging the pond. I think we got challenges later. Yeah, and then I use a 2-inch gas trash pump for my irrigation system, which is another reason why I didn't need the off-grid solar battery power pump kit. Here's the cost on my build. These do not include labor. That is definitely something to note that, you know, most farmers are going to put these systems together. But yeah, you can see, we'll see some numbers on that later. Yeah.
So David, does the gas powered pump out of your pond?
Yes. So it was pumping out of like a not natural pond. It was built in the 80s for livestock, but it was pumping out of that, and now I've switched over that I'm pumping out of the rainwater harvest pond. Yes.
So the tunnel at Casey Farm School is actually on our 11-acre property called Common Ground. So it's a new development that we have. We own that land. We also have a bit of a slope. So Jacob and the team had to adjust for that. It's a 3-season, is that what we call it? High tunnel, single layer. We built it just before, so it was in good shape. And it has aluminum hip board. So that became a challenge as well, but we think that it will last a long time and we won't have to replace it. We didn't want to build a pond because of safety, right? I mean, so many kids and folks coming along, and we happen to be on undermined land. There are limestone mines for the past 100 years. So no building there, but pretty safe place to be. And we put in 4 IBC totes. It's a smaller roof space, so we needed smaller space. And then we're currently in the process of adding a sensory garden on the opposite end of the tunnel. So I would say the IBC totes take about 10 feet of space. The sensory garden is taking another 10 foot of space. Which is a lot of space under a tunnel, but I'm a proponent for very careful production planning, and I believe we can still get as much food out of a small amount of space with very careful planning as we were with more ease and more space. The goal is, again, to bring more people onto the farm to see what's possible, to rely less on municipal water. Right now, we're actually that whole property is off-grid, so we don't have another easy way to water inside the high tunnel. And then we wanted to, provide between the catchment on the building, the small little home size to the high tunnel size, to show a wide range of what's possible. And already when we're showing these numbers up here, I'm getting more and more self-conscious. But I think the self-consciousness comes from myself, I wouldn't be able to afford $6,500. But we were lucky enough to get funded by SARE because we're doing the research. We're showing it's possible, sharing the supplies list. And I think we start somewhere, right? So we start with the $6,500 that pays for all these supplies that we use to build the tunnel. And then we go from there. We ask those questions. Well, I can't do this, but I can do this. I can't do this, but I can do this. So it's a place to start. Get a fancy system if you want. And then if you can't, if your neighbors get jealous, then we can talk about what we might be able to do.
And if you see, we're talking numbers, I mean, you see this line item. If you have, a way to have battery or use a gas powered pump or something else, you really can get that number down.
Are you tied to that number?
Tied to the number.
Are you tied to that degree of development of your solar? You could put solar together
for way less. So why we use this kit is
why are you putting batteries on it?
To be able to irrigate on a cloudy day, to be able to irrigate, when the sun's not out. The demand of the battery helps the pump. Different pumps, you'd have to have a on-demand pump. But yes, it can be much cheaper for solar. We just want to do a kit that would do it all. There's also, we were talking about the battery to be able to use excess energy to put heat into the water to make them 4 seasons so they don't freeze. So connecting to a drip irrigation system, The important part here is we're collecting rainwater and we're putting it into a drip irrigation system, not a overhead irrigation system, because when you collect rainwater off of a roof and then store it in totes, it is then no longer, it probably won't. We have done some testing and some of the numbers have showed that it is not suitable for overhead watering of the consumable portion of produce to be sold. So you want to definitely think about water treatment systems and or, we haven't found any numbers high enough that drip irrigation does not work. And so you can collect rainwater and you can use drip irrigation safely.
That's because you're putting it on the soil rather than on the plant itself.
Yes, you would want to, like carrots, potatoes. It's because you're not putting water on the harvestable portion of the produce. That's the key terminology. So here's the breakdown of costs and how many gallons they would store, or how many gallons would be irrigated out of them in a tunnel over a season. And so you can see the, 38,000, that's the ideal amount of water in the tunnel for the whole entire season because that system never went dry. These other systems, you can see when you get smaller, you start to have to add more water into the system to get to that number. So you will be using rural water and rainwater. Site challenges. So Herdsman House Farm, we rebuilt it and we put them in, and the hip boards were about yay high. And so when you pull 4-inch PVC off of a gutter, it came in like halfway onto the top of the IBC tote. So then we either had to dig everything down and set it down, or we had to come in through the side. So we lost a lot of rainwater storage on those totes in that system because the hip board was not placed high enough in order to drain into the top of the totes like the other system did. Real fun one also on that farm. Used the new 2-in-1 primer glue combo to glue all those PVC joints to interconnect all of the totes. And if you've ever worked in a greenhouse in the middle of the summer, it's about 109 degrees is what it was that day. And this product was rated to be effective up to 110 degrees. Every single joint on that 2-inch PVC leaked under just gravitational pressure of the water. And so that whole system then had to be dug up, re-put in, for a second time on a cooler day. Did contact Oatly, never heard anything back. But yeah, so the pump on 2 of these systems is it's an indoor pump on that kit is another thing I don't actually love about that kit. Why would you have an off-grid outdoor system that has to be inside of a building or housing? But it was the best we could find that was very replicatable. So that is something that Sharon definitely can talk to you about, how much fun it is to hook a pump up and unhook a pump for the winter.
It's not fun.
And so like to catch this rain, we've been in a winterized mode for those 3-season systems. In order to catch this rain, you have to unwinterize the system, which means bringing the pump back out and hooking it up. We did unions on everything, so everything could be moved and repaired individually. At my place, the fun part, there's 2 of them, but both of them had to do with putting in the irrigation or the pond liner. If you've ever handled a 50 by 50 foot piece of 220 pound rubber, it's actually kind of awkward. Like it was way more difficult to install than anticipated. So have that in mind. If you don't have, we tried it with like 8 people. And it was just so awkward that it didn't work. And so I ended up having to like make an axle and things and do it with a skid loader. And yeah. The other fun one about that one was we dug the pond. I dug the pond in like a day, rented a machine for $700, dug pond for a day. And then summer hit, tomatoes hit, whatever. And then Johnson grass and ragweed took over. And so then we went and had to pull all the weeds out before putting the pond liner in. And that took like 3 or 4 days kind of thing versus 1 day. So that was an operational error that added a lot of flavor, not expected. KC Farm School, biggest challenge there was the metal hip boards. A lot of high tunnels now, people are doing the metal hip boards. If you're trying to attach gutters that are designed to screw into wood onto 12 gauge steel, It's not fun. We did find that the same mounting equipment did work, and it is holding just fine. So we didn't actually change anything there. It just made the install way more difficult. They also have the drop down sidewalls versus the roll up, and that comes into, so you had to order the extra wide hip board in order to have enough room for the pulley and cable system and the gutter and the C channel for the road. Other considerations? We've come to find out that, you know, when you store water in a tank and it gets sunlight, it has nutrients and particulate in it. It's gonna grow algae. These smaller systems fill and empty fast enough that it's not actually as big of an issue. Whereas with the pond system, I'm 100% going to have to add an additional filtration system that's pretty decent. Like, you know, I'm going to end up doing a bog filter, kind of like a wetlands filter, circulations, but pool filters, sand filters, you know, right now it's being filtered through biochar and straw with oyster mushrooms growing in it. And it's still, okay. Leaf gutters, if you're near a tree and you're collecting rainwater, you're going to have leaf tea coming out, and leaf tea also grows microbiology really well. So you want to either do a first flush diverter, sedimentation tanks, so you collect water in one tank and then it overflows off of that tank into the rest of the tank, so then all the sediment is collected in the first tank, is one good way to help mitigate that. And one of these tunnels has been re-roofed since we put gutters on it. It was mine. It was slightly windy. I had 3 people available. And so we actually pulled the gutters off to re-roof it, just safety-wise to not rip the plastic. If you've re-roofed a tunnel, you understand what we're talking about. So think about when you're putting gutters on that, you know, I thought we contemplated like maybe dropping them down or something so they're not in that roof space. But rip pool noodles in half and put them all along is kind of what I've done for most of the greenhouses I've re-roofed that have pokies and gutters. Opportunities for future research. Water quality is definitely a notable challenge on this. If you're using this collected rainwater for agricultural purposes, we have more than just irrigation for that. This is suitable for drip irrigation. It's not suitable for overhead irrigation. It's not suitable for, you know, hand washing or produce washing. Like there's a lot of things on the farm that we could be using this rainwater for that it will need farther treatment. And that's something that we're going to continue to look into in order for it to be suitable and safe for those purposes. Current filtration methods, we are just using a 150 micron inline filter on a 1-inch, you know, poly pipe. Just to protect the pump and the drip tube. And that's been working fine. This is Clover and us enjoying the, you know, the first rain filling the pond. So, if you have any questions, she helped build every single one of this. But yes, so we're open for questions.
Had any environment issues with your rubber and plastic liner?
I did ask a lot, and I did a lot of research on that before. You can see she's on here with toenails, and it's thick enough that I have not had a problem. I was more worried about the rocks and debris underneath it and the pressure of the water, because they are rated for deer to walk across them. They're totally rated for that. I could not find one that was, you know, the ratings of the rubbers, there's a lot of different pond liners out there and a lot of different materials, and they all have their limitations. But I have not had an issue with that, no. You can see I also have aeration stones in here. So this pond I'm keeping circulating with aeration and filtration. When you have standing water, rainwater collection, that's important because you don't want to breed mosquitoes in biology.
So what do you use?
It's just an air stone. Yeah. You can get them for fish tanks, hydroponics, aquaponics, all the different things.
How are you powering that?
That is, I have power in the tunnel, and then my farm is run off with 7.8 kilowatts of solar.
Did you get it from the place where my list for miner? They have the in-ground pond. We were kind of looking at them, kind of something similar. It was you guys use them.
This, fortunately, unfortunately, was from pondliners.com. Yeah, it was looking on the internet to try and find one. I did not find one locally, so I'm actually pretty curious because I am in Miami County and.
Somewhere over that way, and they've got, of course, the decorative pond you can grow lily pads. They've got huge giant pond liners there. I was just wondering, and then do you run your water underground into your high tunnel, or she said it's 4 seasons go above ground? You're transferring the water.
This one's currently above ground, but it will be in ground, and there's actually plans. I'm going to build a tunnel over this. Is actually that's what's happening here. So then it'll be an indoor pond that'll grow mushrooms on this side and climate control.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah,
utilizing the pond and the water catchment system to provide the humidity that mushrooms would need during certain times of year. That was kind of my idea. During the hotter months, I wouldn't be growing mushrooms outdoors. It'd be more like an inside thing. But with the high tunnels, you could totally do that at the early part of spring when the temperatures are cooler, and then when it starts cooling down during fall, early winter. But using an irrigation style humidity control.
Yeah.
For the mushrooms, because you're absolutely right. You can't sit there and use overhead misting systems for your mushrooms to keep the humidity.
Yeah. There's a lot there. I'd be happy to talk mushroom cultivation with you. Yeah. The plan of this one would be 80% shade cloth and then evaporative cooling. So then you're not actually applying the water to the mushroom because once again you get into a food safety issue. Yes.
What do you do with your rainwater overflows?
So the overflow needs to be sized with the inflow. So we have a 4-inch inlet on the IBC tow systems. We have a 4-inch outlet on each half. And then that comes out of the tunnel and just goes onto the ground into a drainage ditch. And mine, it's just kind of like a stormwater runoff. I have not had it overflow, and the plan is to continually use it and keep it there, but it'll overflow someday. And so you do want to plan for that for sure. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all. I think maybe you'll be around if you have questions after the session.
Yep.
We've got a little break after the session here. And with that, I'll try and click over to our next presenter, Sarah Easton, who's going to be talking about hosting interns on the farm.
And shout out to Sarah. If you haven't put in a Sarah grant or research looking into Sarah programs, they're very friendly to work with. They're great to work with. They have a lot of different options, youth education, partnerships like this, beginning farmer rancher. Definitely recommend checking out Sarah.